Chasing the Dragon podcast with me, Chris, and my friend Nate. Nate is going to talk to us about what he does for a living, what he does for fun, and everything in between. So, anyway, Nate Pagan.
Thank you.
What's up? Welcome. So I got a whole bunch of questions. And
all right.
You know, because we've known each other for a while.
Yep.
Right?
I think I started at Underdog in 2013. Summer 2013. I was an intern.
Yeah.
And I've been with them ever since. So.
Yeah. That's right, you were. I forgot about that. Yeah, you were an intern. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
You know what? Because I remember now. Because you know what threw me off was that because you were mostly on the fitness side of things.
Yes.
But I remember sitting there, I'm like, for a CrossFit dude, that dude moves pretty good. Because you jump in class once in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he don't move like a gym guy.
Yeah.
So that's right, man. 2013. Had you always been interested in that? Fitness, wellness?
Yeah. So my grandfather is a big influence in my life.
Uh-huh.
I mean, as well as my brother and my father.
Uh-huh.
They're kind of like the three mentors, if you will, growing up. My grandfather played Major League Baseball, so I always wanted to do something athletically.
Okay.
It started with baseball. You know, everyone in my family was really good. Myself, my brother included. My brother was nasty.
That's awesome.
But then we moved from Puerto Rico. I was very young. I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was 8. My brother was 12.
Okay.
And then my brother was like, Dad, I don't want to play baseball anymore. I want to play football. There is no football in Puerto Rico, obviously.
Right.
Unless you say football and we're talking about soccer.
Right.
And I saw him do that, and I was just like, yeah, I want to do that. But ever since I was like 6,
okay,
I would beg my parents to put me into martial arts.
Cool.
Funny story, my dad, I found out years later, didn't want to put me in there because he didn't think I was tough enough.
Get out.
And he didn't want me to get hurt. But he put me in football, so I was like, okay. You know what I mean? But even
yeah.
But like even that one took a little bit convincing.
Yeah.
So shortly after that first or second year of football, you know, he let me start martial arts, which was, I mean, as you know, it's just a lifelong journey. It never ends, right? So,
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about martial arts. So now, here it is. Your dad didn't think you were tough enough, but you fought competitively. Like
after he let me train martial arts, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So competition wise, what have you done?
So, a lot in the realm of Taekwondo. That was my first martial art. Not so much in anything else. I've always wanted to compete. But as you know, life happens and you're in different places. Things change. Yeah. So most of my competition was in Taekwondo, Olympic style sparring.
Okay.
So it's not, yes, there's a point system, but it's not point fighting where point, stop, reset. It's not like that.
Right.
So for those that don't know, Taekwondo is just a lot of kicking. That's what we're known for.
Yeah.
There is punching in the art. You rarely see it because everybody's trying to literally kick the shit out of the other person.
Yeah.
So I remember my first big tournament was Nationals 2001. I was like, damn, I think I was 12.
Okay.
I was a yellow belt, but you're not allowed to compete unless you're a green belt. And I remember my coach had just... I thought he was going to give me a green belt just to give me one. But he's like, wear this for the meet. We're going to say you're a green belt. You got to give that shit back when you get back. So what if I win? He's like, it doesn't matter. I was like, so it was funny for that one. That was the first time I got an idea of what it actually is to train for something.
Okay.
And see the benefits, right? We were doing, I mean, you know, shout out to my dad and my family because they did everything they could to help, you know.
Okay.
We didn't have a shit ton of money, but he found a couple things that we could bring to the basement at the time of the apartment complex we were at to use, whether it was a kicking shield or whatever it was. And, you know, I'd have my classes at my school, and then at home it was almost always about another, anywhere between an hour or 3 hours of work.
Wow.
And, you know, when you're young, you know, I was, 11 or 12?
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think much of it.
Okay.
I just thought that's what I was supposed to do, which turns out it was.
Yeah.
But I was trying to make weight for a lighter weight class. I was a chubby kid. And I was 0.25 pounds off.
Okay.
Now I'm 11 or 12. I think I was 11. I didn't know I could say, hey, hold up. Don't put that weight down.
Uh-huh.
Let me go burn this 2.5 off.
Okay.
Or 0.25. So I didn't know anything, and I just said, sure, whatever. So I ended up fighting in the heavier weight class when I was the lightest and the shortest kid.
Uh-huh.
But long story short, I had won gold that year. And it's funny, on the podium, you see me standing, and the kid that took second, I'm on the first place podium. He's almost just as tall as me, standing at second. So that was my real first taste of, you put in what you get, right?
Right, yeah.
So learning that at a young age was pretty cool. And then, things kind of just took off after that. No, he didn't give me my green belt like I'd hoped he would if I won. I still had to get promoted to it over time. And I kept doing it up until high school.
Uh-huh.
In high school, I had to make a choice. It was either football or taekwondo. Yep. I had aspirations to try and make an Olympic team for taekwondo, but I realized football would lead to a scholarship if I took it seriously. So my freshman to sophomore year, I continued with taekwondo until I finally hit my black belt. That was my goal.
Yeah.
I hit it, and then I just stepped back so I can focus on football.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's dope. A couple of things. So, one, it really makes you think. And don't get me wrong, I love football.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love martial arts. I
Mm-hmm.
love martial arts. All of them. I love watching football more. I like training. I love training. I love watching fights. I love watching fights. I watch all of them. I like watching football more. Now, I love martial arts more as far as my own personal preference. And it's too bad that, they don't have, martial arts scholarship opportunities. You know what I mean?
So
especially for an Olympic-style sport.
Yeah, so what I found out was...
Because it's not just like boxing or kickboxing.
Exactly.
Or kickboxing, we'll say, right? Because boxing is an Olympic sport also. But we're talking, you're doing an Olympic quality event.
So what I found much later on in life, there were some schools that had taekwondo teams.
Okay.
But I don't know that... I mean, I don't think it was scholarship stuff.
Yeah.
I know UConn, our school,
Yeah.
or my old taekwondo school, Yusuf Taekwondo in New Britain. So my coach there had one of his black belts, Raj, who ended up going to UConn, started a program up there.
Okay.
But it wasn't like, hey, we want you, here's some scholarship money, this, and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go to Korea,
oh yeah,
where that's that's their thing, that's where the sport originated.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, you can literally get a master's in taekwondo over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's different.
Yes.
But not just with that sport. In general, I do agree. It's not. I mean, if you just look at the U.S., the martial arts aren't as prevalent as they are in other countries. It's getting bigger, obviously, especially with MMA now. I mean, I think that's just huge now. But in regards to the traditional martial arts, there's a lot of kids and people that do them, but to a certain level, and then they kind of just fade out.
Sure. Yeah. So this tournament, and you're standing on the podium. The kid who took second place is on the podium, right? How did you feel after you won the first match that day? Because this is your first
I
time.
remember all of it pretty vividly.
All right. Okay.
Honestly, there was no real until I won my gold medal match, I didn't feel anything.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And it wasn't it was just, man, I mean, I'm sure you've been there. When you're just in the zone, it's just
yeah.
What's next? Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Let's go. And I remember every fight. I think I had 4 or 5 fights.
You were locked in.
My coach, again, Walid Yusuf over at Yusuf Taekwondo, he's phenomenal. He, that was the first time where going into a tournament, he's like, this first fight, this is what we're going to show.
Okay.
Second fight, we're going to show a little bit of this. So every fight was something a little different.
Okay.
And I had never trained like that. I'd never done that. I just, so by the time the gold medal match came up, it was, you just didn't know what was coming out because he had made me show different styles.
Yeah.
of fighting. And it wasn't anything that wasn't out of my wheelhouse. It was just, we're only doing this fight.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty cool. And I just remember, even when I won, it was like, oh shit, I won. And it didn't really hit me until I turned around and my coach was like running at me. He like picked me up. It was like a whole Rocky scene. He picked me up and I didn't know what to do, so I just put my arms up and looked around.
Yeah.
It was cool though, because I was fighting for Team Connecticut, but I'm Puerto Rican.
Mm-hmm.
And Puerto Rico had a team out there.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, my mother, she's got like 13 sisters and brothers, so she knows. I had a lot of cousins I don't know.
Yeah.
Apparently one of them was fighting for Team Puerto Rico.
Right on.
So they got wind, and when I was fighting for every match, all of Puerto Rico was there, which was the dopest experience, because you're fighting and all you hear is the drums going and people singing.
Wow.
That, like, even to this point, it gives me chills. That was the coolest experience I think I've ever had.
That's dope.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah. So that was a great day. It was like one of your more, right? One of your top days ever, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was young, but it was something, you don't forget things like that,
yeah.
you know?
You, I would say you definitely learned something about yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe even made a statement for, maybe even just to yourself, or maybe you made a statement that day. That's awesome. So that was, how old were you?
Poof, I was like 11. It was either 11 or 12. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Good for you. That's great. So then football, what'd you do?
So again, I was very timid when I was younger, so it took a little bit. But when my dad finally let me play, I just wanted to do everything my older brother did.
Okay.
Right? He was a running back. He was a middle linebacker. That's what I want to be.
Cool.
So my first year of Pop Warner, I was a fullback and a middle linebacker. And it was funny because there was one year where I didn't play football because I was so involved with Taekwondo. I was like, you know what, I'm going to run with this. And that was 7th grade. Now, going into 8th grade, I was like, man, if I want to play football in high school, I should probably play again just to see what it's like. So I played in 8th grade, and, you know, from, I think I started at like 8 years old to about 13.
Yeah.
I had like this baby fat stage, if you will.
Okay.
So I went from playing fullback to, like, I remember they tried to put me at guard, and I was like, what the hell is this? I'm not a freaking guard.
Yeah.
But then between 7th and 8th grade, I should say 6th to 8th, I kind of started to grow into my own body.
Yeah.
So I leaned out a little bit. I always felt I was fast, but I felt like no one knew I was fast. And it showed that year that I came back and played. I kind of had like a little bit of a breakout season for Pop Warner.
Okay.
I surprised my coaches, surprised myself. And then from there, that's when I made the decision, all right, I'm going to stick with football. So my freshman year, all I cared about was just having a good freshman season.
Yeah.
I had no expectations. And then I remember I went to a couple of speed camps at Central.
Okay.
And it just so happened that the coach running that speed camp was one of the assistant coaches for Newington.
Okay.
He saw something, whatever it was. We got back to camp. So camp in high school is like 3 days.
Okay.
It's not like college where you're doing a whole month before school gets there. He had approached me, asked me if I was willing to be the varsity running back. I mean, I'm, 14, 15 years old? What am I going to say? No?
Right.
I was like, sure. Not thinking much of it. I just figured maybe I'd be a backup or something.
Yeah.
It just, the cards fell right. The way it turned out that year, the running backs they had, one left from the previous year, and they wanted to move someone else to another position, so they tried me out. And I remember our very first scrimmage, middle linebacker blitzed. The minute I touched the ball, he laid me the fuck out.
Welcome.
It was, ball went that way. He was just on top of me grinning, and I was just like, oh shit, this is varsity football? All right.
Yeah.
And I remember, just like you said, I got off the field, and my head coach was like, well, welcome to varsity football.
Yeah.
He's like, are you all right? I'm like, yeah. I just wanted to get back in to prove, like, all right, whatever. Someone missed a block. Like, that wasn't on me. Come on, give me the ball. Right. So it turned out, I stayed at that position for the year. I attribute most of my success almost always to my linemen. just because if they weren't there, holes wouldn't be open.
Right.
Obviously, as a running back, you have to look for things and make moves, but I had a really good line that year. I had a breakout freshman year, and then from there, kind of hit the ground running, and it led to some state records in the record books, a couple here and there, and then eventually a scholarship for college. So I ended up playing at Central.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to do 4 years. I ended up getting hurt what was supposed to be junior year or senior year. So I redshirted that year. So I was there for 5 years. And then captained my senior year. And once I was done, I was done. I wasn't one of those people that's like, oh, let me go play, like flag. And nope, I'm done. I gave like 12 years of my life to this. I'm all set.
Sure.
Which is why I went to Underdog, because I knew at the end of the year, I was like, I just want to go back to martial arts. Like,
nice.
That's been my first love since I can remember. I did everything I could with football. As we said earlier, like martial arts is one of those things where you can never do everything you can with it. You're always progressing, evolving.
Yeah.
Whether it's learning a new martial art, learning a new technique, or different things that work for you, etc. Yeah. So, I think that's why I'm so intrigued by the martial arts.
It's the best part.
Yeah. You think you know, and then you realize, fuck, I don't know.
Yeah. That's the best part. Seeing someone do something cool, seeing someone train a different way, all of it. All
Absolutely.
of it. Some guy comes in and he can do 7 spins and then, you know what I mean? Like, it's amazing. The stuff they do on the jiu-jitsu mats, all of it. It could be new every day.
I was just going to say, I feel like that sport is evolving so much. It's just like, there's so many different locks and holds and positions and guards that keep coming up, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm a very nuts and bolts kind of guy with most of the things I do, so if I can't figure out the nuts and bolts, I don't really want to do all these crazy guards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's all preference. That's what's good about the martial arts, right? You find something that works for you.
Yeah.
And you develop your game around it.
Absolutely. So, you're a running back, right? I want to talk about this really quick because I love football. You think about that, right? You're the running back. You are in the middle of it. Like, you are literally in the middle of it. Like, you're plugged in. You don't get much more plugged in than that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's intense, right?
Yeah.
For the 3 seconds, the 5 seconds, whatever it is, like for that brief moment, man, that's intense.
I'm going to use 2 analogies, both with martial arts and football. And some people might think I'm crazy for this. That's okay. Those that understand. There's no greater feeling in martial arts when you are competing and you hit this flow where you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
And you're just dominating.
Yeah.
That is inexplainable and cannot be found in any other way except through competing in that martial arts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with football. For me, it's running the ball. When that ball is in my hands, I have zero fear.
Yeah.
And it's the only time in my life that I've ever felt that way.
Okay.
Like, I don't care who you are. You can be Warren Sapp coming at me. If the ball is in my hands, I have no fear.
Right on.
I'm going to lower my shoulder. You might fuck me up. Or I might fuck you up.
Yeah.
It's Warren Sapp who'll fuck me up.
Yeah.
but in my mind, you know what I mean? In my mind, I'm coming for you.
That's
right?
it. That's it.
So it's very hard to mimic either of those two feelings outside the realm of those sports.
Sure.
So that's why I love running the ball. Because I just know the mindset I have when I'm running the ball. And I have... In college, they used to call me swivel hips. I'm not, I don't juke. That's not what I do. But I can cut off a block really well. I can set up blocks really well. And I'm very much so a north and south runner. Which, for my size, you don't see as much.
Okay.
Normally, backs my size are a little bit more finesse.
Yeah.
Fuck that. No, I'm going to lower my shoulder any chance I get.
Okay.
But it's just like anything. It's very intense, right? Like, leading up to the game, you're nervous. I don't care who you are. This is one thing I want to say. I don't care who you are, whatever sport it is, you will always be nervous.
Absolutely.
Like fighters that are like, I got no fear before the fight. Shut up. I don't believe you.
No, yeah.
Like, you just get better at taming that.
Right.
Once you're in there, you feel that first strike, whatever it may be, then you start to let loose. All right, I'm in it.
Yeah.
But until then, I don't care who you are. There's nerves, there's fear, there's everything.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so addicting.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with running the ball. It's just, hey, man, like, I know this is my hole, but if that doesn't open, I got, like, a second to make a decision and run with it.
Right.
Which is, again, taking a step back, looking at it, you can appreciate it. While you're doing it, it's just habit, instinct. You just do things. But, yeah, if there's one thing I miss about football, it's that feeling.
Okay.
That you can't mimic.
Yeah. It's a great game, man. Yeah. It's a great game. Do you think martial arts helped you with football, or did football help you with martial arts?
I think both.
Yeah, right?
Because when I didn't play that year in 7th grade and I was doing a lot of Taekwondo, there's a lot of... Taekwondo's all legs again.
Yeah.
Again, it's not to say we don't have punches, but that's just not what we're known for, and it's not what we do when we spar.
Sure.
So you develop really agile hips.
Yeah.
Legs, footwork. Footwork for the sport, right? Because the footwork for Taekwondo is going to be different than it is for kickboxing, and it's different than it is for boxing.
Mm-hmm.
But it does allow that hip dexterity and flexibility. And it was pretty evident when I came back 8th grade and into that freshman year. Just the way I was running, moving, making cuts.
Mm-hmm.
I attribute a lot of that to the years I spent in Taekwondo.
Cool.
Likewise, being a running back for so long, you just develop. Some of it is genetics. I'm not going to sit here and lie to people, right? Again, I had a grandfather that played major leagues. So, but you do develop that fast twitch, speed, and movement, which same thing helps with Taekwondo. I'm going to beat you to the kick.
Right.
Or I'm going to be quick enough to get out and counter, etc.
Sure.
So I think they go hand in hand. If, just like anything in life, if you approach it with intent.
Yeah.
If you're kind of just playing football to hang out with your friends, or doing the martial arts to hang out with your friends, it's different as opposed to trying to gain as much as you can from each individual sport that you participate in.
Right. Do you, with regards to kicking, right? So does this make sense to you? Do you have a preference? Would you rather, or what do you like doing better? Beating him to the kick, or getting offline and hitting him with the kick? That's two different things.
Yeah.
So
Russ yells at me all the time. Sometimes for throwing naked kicks.
Okay.
You obviously know who Liam Harrison is.
Yeah.
He's got very fast kicks.
Okay. Yeah.
He can get away with throwing a naked kick because he's so fast.
Right.
Now, I have gotten away with that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not stupid.
Mm-hmm.
One day, I'm not going to get away with that.
Right.
Maybe that's the day I learn. But it depends. If I'm throwing a combination, I like to angle out on my kicks.
Okay.
Like, depending on what I'm coming with. Like, I remember years ago I would watch Jose Aldo throw that body hook leading right into that low leg kick.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be my thing for the longest time. But the more I do it, the more I look for angles.
Okay.
When I first started, a lot of it was here.
All right.
Just straight forward. And straight back. But the more I practice, the more I look for angles.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I can get an angle on you and take that leg, well, you're in no position to return fire. You're in no position to counter, and I'm completely on the offensive at that point.
Sure.
So I think I started a lot with back and forth. And I think a lot of that was attributed to Taekwondo. It was a lot this.
Yeah, linear. Right.
Yeah. But the more I practice, I think I'm starting to find and like angles a lot more.
Cool.
Especially, I had worked with a boxing coach for a little bit. That's when I realized, oh shit, I really need to work angles. You know how it is. It's like you just stand in front of someone you're a freaking target to just be teed off on.
Right.
But yeah.
So now, for those who may not be familiar with kicking and kicking arts.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking naked kicks, what's your go-to naked kick?
Honestly, just my rear roundhouse kick.
Really? Just that?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I've just been doing that for so long that I know I can land on majority of people.
Right on.
I remember when there was this one fight I had in Taekwondo where all I was using was my right leg. I ended up losing that fight. And that's when my coach was like, you need to learn how to use your left leg. So, leading up to nationals and just from then on, it was like if I threw one leg or my right leg in practice, whether it was on a bag or holding pads for my dad, I would have to throw 2 to 3 with my left. Like, that's how I got good at my left.
Sure.
But she's Old Faithful. You know what I mean?
Right
It's just muscle memory since I was like freaking 10. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Every now and then I'll throw a back kick naked.
Okay.
I'll set it up though. So is it really naked? Like I'm not throwing anything behind it, but I'll bait people to come forward. And I'll back up and then I'll throw it.
Okay.
That's very Taekwondo style.
Those are vicious.
Yeah,
when they hit.
Yeah.
When they hit. Jesus.
People. I don't think a lot of people know how much that sucks.
Yeah.
Like even when I throw it in practice, I never fully extend it, just because. I mean, again, that is there's different ways to throw it. But in Taekwondo, depending on where I was with distance, there's a couple of ways I throw it, but you put everything behind it and you extend, you can break ribs. So you just got to be mindful of what you do when you're training, as opposed to, all right, well now this is competition.
Right. I was just gonna say, people get fucked up by those.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could really you could put somebody, you could take them out for the day. They're done. Yeah.
Especially if you go up top, which you don't see as much.
Right.
A lot of people don't have the dexterity in their hips to go up top with that kick.
Sure.
But I mean, it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah. What about what did you like off the front leg?
So in Taekwondo, it was a little different. I used my front leg to set up a lot of stuff.
Okay.
Just the other day, every now and then Russ is like jab only, straight punches only, kicking only.
Yep.
So it was kicking only, just for this round. Sometimes if you watch Taekwondo a lot, they'll just lift that front leg up. They'll kind of hop on that back leg, kind of baiting you to see what you'll do.
Yep.
But the minute it comes down, based off your reaction, there's a wide variety of things you can do. So that
Bill Wallace
that used to be
Yeah.
like in Taekwondo, that was my jab pretty much.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a feeler. It was kind of just, all right, where you at? As soon as it goes down, then I can figure out what I want to do. But off the front leg, outside of that, now I like going to that inside leg kick.
Yeah.
You don't see it utilized as much.
Yeah.
But if you catch someone like right here in the meat coming across, not up, I mean, the leg goes that way, and now they're off balance. If you come with that rear leg on the other leg, it's like, there's a lot of things that opens up.
Really traumatize that leg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I didn't... Oh, and I used to use a side kick a lot in Taekwondo.
Cool.
That was like my version of a teep.
Okay.
Which is now something I've been working on more. A little bit more of a Thai style teep, so it's angled as opposed to straightforward.
Yeah.
You get a little more reach, a little more power with that. So I've been working on that.
Cool.
But as of right now, I'd probably say that inside leg kick and those teeps I've been trying to get a lot better at.
Yeah. Working with the boxing coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said you started working more angles and stuff. Was because you've always known how to punch. Was it a easy transition, or did you? No.
I typically pick things up quick,
mm-hmm.
and I haven't worked with him in a while. But when I first started with him, I told him, "Listen, he's actually a guy I work with on the job. He's really good. He's a phenomenal coach."
Cool.
I said, "Hey, I'm coming to you for boxing. Don't worry about kickboxing. Don't worry about putting me in a boxing stance because you don't want me to get used to that." I was like, "Put me in whatever stance you want.
Yeah.
Teach me how to throw punches how you want. Russ and I will figure out the rest."
Right.
I'm very much so, like, if I'm going to learn something new, I want to learn that to its core.
Right.
It's my job and my coach's job to mix everything together and blend it.
Yep.
The biggest thing I think was I'm so forward. It was finding that balance of being able to kind of be grounded center as opposed to everything coming forward.
Sure. I
can just throw from here comfortably in range, slip out, move.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing, which I still struggle with, but it's something I work on my shadow boxing a lot when I do shadow box. But the more I did it, it was one of those things where I could rep something so many times with him, and there was days where I would just be fucking pissed, and he would just start laughing. He's like, "Good, we're gonna keep doing this." I'm like, "You fucking asshole." But those are things that it's not till like a week or a couple of days later you rep it again. You're like, "Oh, I get it."
Sure.
I'm a big proponent of just drilling.
Yeah.
But it was balance. I think is the hardest thing for me to find when it comes to boxing.
Okay.
In regards to my footwork, where I'm at, not being too far forward when I throw punches, because then now I can't move except forward into a punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So, tiny little nuances like that you just got to keep drilling. That and head movement. I'd like to say I have decent head movement, but the problem is countering off the head movement.
Sure.
Sometimes I find, I can dodge punches, but I dodge too much. Now I'm out of position. I can't throw. So getting comfortable in the pocket so you can come back as opposed to I have this big pull and now he's about 6 feet away from me and there ain't shit I can do about it. So I come back and try and figure it out.
Isn't that masterful?
Yeah, it really is.
To literally be like in a spot where you can just let it rip and the other guy can't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that sucks.
That's why, when I watch, I'll watch Canelo and I'm just like, how do you do that? Yeah. Obviously, he's been doing this for a long time, but it's beautiful to watch.
It is.
Especially when you do it and you know how hard that is.
Right.
You just develop a whole new appreciation for it.
That base and balance is everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild how, with each martial art, because think about it, balance is important in football.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Balance is important in Taekwondo. Jeez, duh. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But it's a different balance. It's
correct.
Wild.
That's the thing. Right, Taekwondo, I'm bladed as hell. You can't kick me in the legs in Taekwondo, so I'm going to be ignorant and just put that leg out there.
Sure.
You go to kickboxing, Thai boxing, well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You go to boxing, you can go back to your bladed stance. You know what I mean? So it's very true what you said, right? Balance is different depending on what you're doing. But it's important in every athletic endeavor that you do.
Right. Do you watch fights? I mean, I know you do, or have, or you know what I'm saying, but
So it's funny because when I played football,
mm-hmm.
even to this day, I never really watched it.
Okay.
I always thought that was weird. I was like, maybe it's just because I do it all the time. I don't want to watch it. But I've always enjoyed watching fighting. My training of the martial arts has been on and off because of football. And then I tried some other athletic endeavors, and now I'm back to it.
Yeah.
But throughout the whole time, I always watch videos.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of it. Well, if I'm not doing it, I'll watch YouTube videos. Whether it's a fighter I like, whether it's something I'm trying to get better at. I just like to watch fights.
Yeah.
To watch fights, but also, that's pretty cool. Let me try that.
Right.
And I think that's where, even when I have sometimes a couple years off, first thing that goes is your vision. You come back, you're sparring, you're like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Whereas before you'd be making people miss, now you're like, how did that happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But from watching so much, you still, I don't want to say you still got it, but it's not like you were out 2 years and didn't watch it, didn't digest anything.
Right.
Right? I'm constantly watching stuff. And I'll ask Russ, hey, I saw this, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or just, the more you watch, the more you grow in your martial arts career, endeavors, whatever you want to call it. You look for different things.
I agree.
Right now, as we spoke earlier, I look a lot at footwork or why people are doing what they're doing as opposed to, there is a reason behind everything thrown.
Yep.
It's not, let's go out there and wing it and see what happens.
Right.
I mean, you can do that, but at the highest level, you can't.
No, right.
And so it's cool to see, someone hitting a technique round 1, and then round 3, they knock someone out, and you realize, oh, they set that up from round 1.
Yeah.
That's, to me, like, genius. I love watching stuff like that.
It totally is. There's been some guys who, I mean, what was it? Like him or not, when Connor fought, what's his name?
Recently?
No, when he fought the wrestler kid. What was his name?
Oh, Chad Mendes?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Chad Mendes took him down like it was free.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Boom. And then he started working on that. I think it was basically a straight kick to the body a couple times. And that took the wind out of his sails. Setting it up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Remember when Lyoto, what was it? It was Couture, Randy Couture. Did you see that? When he hit him with the crane kick? Boom.
Yes. I remember that because I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah, the kicking arts, man, you get a chance to see people get knocked out, and it's just a combination of amazing, incredible, and vicious sometimes.
Well, vicious, I think, is the thing, right? Because, listen, punches are vicious, but, this is a big muscle.
Yeah.
This is a big lever coming at you. And if that lands at full speed, yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of... Kicking it takes time.
Right.
And I think a lot of people start sometimes and they get frustrated. And I'm like, because I've had people just the other day, we were doing this drill and some kid was like, man, I want to kick like that. And I just started laughing. He's like, what? I'm like, dude, don't be in a rush. I've been doing this since I was 10.
Yeah.
That is the only reason I can do that.
Yeah.
For no other reason than that. You know what I mean? That's why you have these guys in Thailand, they start at 6.
Right.
They have 12 fights by the time they're 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think sometimes people get discouraged seeing that. Man, I'll never get like that. I was like, well, listen.
Yeah. It's hard to catch. There's no way to catch up with that.
There isn't.
There's no way to catch up with
that. That's a different, for most of them, it's literally life or death. They need to feed their family. So they're going to do everything they can to feed their family.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is for fun.
Right.
There's just a big difference.
Yeah.
But, yeah, kicking is a different, it's a different dexterity.
Yeah.
You can teach a lot of people how to punch, and even that takes a lot of time, but kicking is just there's different elements involved with it.
Sure. Have you ever checked out Savate?
I have. Never actually done it,
but
I've seen a lot of videos on it too. What country's martial art is that?
France.
France, that's what I thought. Okay. And they use it with their armed forces and stuff there, right?
Yeah. It's it's pretty good. They kick a lot. Their competitions. It's weird. It's almost. It doesn't quite have the speed of Taekwondo. It's got more of a, if you could say, boxing with your feet, but it's not as fast. You know what I'm saying?
It's more brutal, isn't it?
It can be. They've got some pretty nasty targets that they'll aim to. They're trying to blow out your knees completely.
That's what I thought,
Yeah, So, what did I want to ask you about? There was something you had said, and it triggered a thought for me, and it was... Yeah. So, how old are you now? You're
31.
31. I was going to say 30. All right, 31. Yeah. And then now, how about, let's talk fire department.
Yep.
How long?
3.5 years. It'll be 4 years in July 11th.
That long? Wow.
I mean, it feels like I've been on the job for 30 days. but yes.
So, how did that happen? We know what you did to get it, but we'll talk about that too. But how did it happen?
Ben Coker. Ben fucking Coker. So, Ben Coker used to train at Underdog.
Yeah, I know.
He is a West Hartford firefighter. When I first started interning at Underdog, I remember, and it's crazy because I remember telling myself so I'm an exercise science major, and I remember telling myself, man, I love this major, it's fun, but I don't want to be a strength coach, especially in a collegiate level. But I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. That's why I went to Underdog, because they had martial arts and I knew I wanted to go back to it.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I met Ben, who was like me, played football in college.
Okay.
Just liked to work out and train. And I found out he was a firefighter, and he got me interested. He was like, man, it's like, dude, you would love it. It's like, you play football in college, it's like living in a frat house with your boys. And that, it's like, and then you go get to do fun shit together with your team. Like, fire comes in, it's you and your squad. You go in there, you have a blast, this, and that. And, he explained a little bit more of it to me. And up until that point, I never thought about firefighting.
Okay.
And where was I living at the time? At the time, my parents had just moved. So I moved in with my friend and his family in Killingworth. And I found out that Hartford does pretty big hires when they do hire, and that you didn't need any experience. You just needed a GED, valid driver's license, obviously no criminal record, the whole nine, whatever. But that was it. And I had just finished college. While I had a scholarship, there was a couple things I had to pay for while in college, so I took out a couple loans. And I was like, man, I don't want to take out another loan just to pay for fire school. So if I can get into Hartford, that's where I want to go. 4 or 5 years later, I had almost given up on the idea because no tests were coming out.
Yeah.
And at that you have to live in Hartford to get the job, to apply. And at that point, I was living in New Britain with Coker, and I remember I was getting ready to move out, and he had told me, hey, Hartford's hiring. Yeah. Apply. And it was one of those things where it was just like, oh, I said I always wanted to do it. If it comes up, it comes up. It just so happened that I literally just moved into Hartford, I think a month before applications came out. So I remember filling the application out and thinking to myself, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, I have nothing to show for firefighting. Like, everything I have is football and athletics, right? And then exercise science, right? Like, I was a strength coach for Trinity College, CrossFit Hartford, this, and that. So I was a little devastated, but I finished the application. I remember talking to Coker, he's like, just finish it and put it in. And then, long story short, off my first attempt, I got in.
Right on.
Yeah, things, worked out. After the application, you waited a while, you get a letter, you go in for the written, you wait a while, you go in for the physical, then after that, you have your orals. There's like I think we had 3 different oral interviews. The first one is very mainstream for everybody. And if you pass that, then you get into the Chiefs interview, and then one more Chiefs interview. So the whole process took about a year and a half from start to finish. But it was well worth it. I mean, there's days like every day you wake up and you're like, oh man, I don't want to work. But then you get there and it's like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my boys. Hopefully a fire comes in. You know what I mean? Like, I can't complain, man. I love the job. I love the career. The people I work with.
Cool.
Working in Hartford is nice because you see a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And the city burns probably more than any other city in the state.
Wow.
So it's nice.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Was what fire academy, fire school? Was it? Must have been easy, right? Kind of.
Physically, yes.
Okay.
Because I remember going into it. It's paramilitary.
I'm sorry. Easy for you. Right, easy for
me.
Yeah.
It's paramilitary, so they try and make everything, like you're going into boot camp, basically.
But you're used to camps and stuff like that.
Well, that was the thing, is I told myself, like, man, my collegiate strength conditioning coach literally made me cry in the weight room one day from the crazy shit we were doing. I don't think there's anything these guys can do to me that he hasn't done. And he was ex-military.
Okay.
So it was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried about the physical things. I was more concerned about not having any knowledge
Uh-huh.
in the career field, right? Because I wasn't a volunteer. Some guys were volunteers.
Right.
You know, they knew all these things, and I was just like, fuck, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
But then, you know, you adapt. You figure out what works for you in regards to your studying and whatnot. I was shocked at the academic part.
Okay.
I never struggled academically, but I was back in college for
Okay.
those 4 months, pretty much.
Okay.
You know, a lot of reading, almost every night, and then just managing your time, right? Because the academy was Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, which is really like 7 to 5 because you get there early. And then at the time, I had a lot of clients, and most of them I just said, guys, I can't right now.
Uh-huh.
So I kept a couple. So then it was, you know, wake up, academy, till 5, get an hour in at the gym to train, maybe have a client, go home, read for a couple hours, and repeat for like 4 months. So the physical aspect, wasn't that, for me, that difficult, just because of my background and what I've been doing. The academic was what surprised me the most.
Okay.
There is a lot that goes into fire. And like, you know, I have 3.5 years in the job, and I always tell people, like, I don't know nothing. You know, you learn a lot more through your experiences and the more fires you get, but like, you know, sometimes you're in the building with these dudes that have 20 years, and they're like, hey kid, come here. Mind you, this place is burning. Watch this. You see the fire? See what the smoke's doing? Watch. It's going to trickle. It's going to jump over here, and it's going to land over there. You're like, what? Sure enough, you see the whole thing happen before you.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? So, like, there's a lot that goes into it. I'm not, like, a huge fire buff. Like, some guys in the job, like, they'll start talking about things, and I'm like, whoa, slow down. You lost me 5 minutes ago. But, you know, it's like anything. The more experience you have, the more you do it, the more you start to learn these things.
Is there what causes fires? Like, is there an average thing? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, is there?
So it depends on the season for us.
Okay.
Right? Obviously in the winter we get a lot of fires caused by people that don't want to pay their heat bill, so they buy those like electric heaters or whatever.
Okay.
Plug them in, leave the house. Something catches on fire. Sometimes people, again, they don't want to pay their heat bill, so they will take their stove, open it, turn the heat on to try and heat the house that way.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends. And then that's the majority of our winter fires. But little things, you never know. Like, someone could be smoking on their porch the other day. Luckily, it didn't turn into anything, because someone got there and just started dumping water on it.
Yeah.
You could be smoking a cigarette on your freaking porch. Let's say you're on the second floor. Throw it out. And let's say it goes in the gutter, there's a bunch of leaves. Well, boom. Right? So you just never really know. And then there's also people that intentionally start fires.
Right.
Like, I know in the 90s, they had to do a fire watch in Hartford, which meant that an engine company had to patrol the area, because there was people literally going, like, from place to place, lighting shit off.
Let's just burn shit. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes you see things in the job and you're like, I can't believe that just happened.
Wow.
Whether it's a car wreck, a fire, a weird EMS call, it keeps it interesting. Sure.
What's the what is it? Stage 1, stage 4? Is it like level 5? How does it? Is there a clarification for like the real like? There was a 5-alarm fire. What's all that shit mean?
So we have first alarm, which is just your regular box. So if for any regular, I shouldn't say regular, but for any, the first line of attack, let's say, for a fire for us in Hartford is 3 engine companies. Actually 5 engine companies, because you have 3 working in the building. So you have your first due, your second due, and your third due.
Yeah.
First due goes right to the fire. Second due backs up the first.
Mm-hmm.
Third due finds another way of entry to attack the fire from a different angle, right? And they usually go to the floor above, if I'm correct. Hopefully no one from Hartford listens to this, because they'll kill me. If I got that wrong. And then you have an engine company that's going to be RIT, so that is Rapid Intervention Team.
Okay.
So usually they'll get on scene and they start throwing ladders to different sides of the building so people have means of egress. And that's basically if there's a firefighter that goes down in the building, they're coming in to get them.
Okay.
And then you have an engine company that grabs the rehab bus. So they're not really going into the building, they're just grabbing the rehab bus so when the fire's over, there's waters on there, there's food on there. People take your blood pressure and all that to make sure you're healthy, whatnot.
Oh, wow.
And then you have 2 truck companies. So, engines put the fire out with the water and the hoses.
Yeah.
Truck companies, which is what I'm on, we go in, we find the fire for the engine, and then we do search and rescue.
I see.
We also ventilate. So the first do company goes in, search and rescue, and finds the fire.
Yeah.
Second do ventilates. So for us, most of our ventilation is done by cutting a hole in the roof.
Okay.
That's not always. It depends where the fire is located, how bad the fire is, the building, etc., etc.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on to it. And then we also have a district chief. Both district chiefs will be there for that fire. One will be a safety officer, one will be in charge of the whole fire.
Okay.
And then from there you progress to the second alarm, which adds another truck and another engine. And a third, same thing, another, right? Since I've been there, I've been to a couple 2-alarm fires. It depends. I'm not going to say most of them end up being defensive where we pull out and we just hit it from the outside.
Yeah.
Sometimes you call for a second just because you need more manpower.
I see.
Right? It's a big fire. It's not getting ahead of us, but we need more manpower. Like, let's say there's... sometimes in Hartford you have those windows where they have like bars over them.
Yeah.
We call them burglar bars. For us, the minute we see that, that's an automatic call for a second.
Okay.
Because we need another company taking care of that just to pull them out in case we need those windows for egress or whatever it is, right?
I see.
So I've been.
So they're ripping the windows right out.
The burglar
the bars.
bars, yeah.
Okay, the bars. Right.
Yeah. Last year, I was part of a 3rd alarm fire, which was fucking insane. I've never experienced something like that. It was cool, crazy, and humbling.
Mm-hmm.
The minute we roll up on there, there's a guy literally hanging out the freaking window. So we pulled the ladder, I went out there, got him. Then we go inside, we do our searches, we pulled a couple people out. Next thing you know, this fire's getting ahead of us. We go to a 3rd alarm. Long story short, we ended up pulling 27 people out of that building.
Whoa.
And at the same time that was going on, another fire came in on the opposite side of town, which we had to call in for mutual aid.
Wow.
So West Hartford and East Hartford came because we had so much manpower in that 1/3 alarm.
Yeah.
That we had to call for other departments to come in and help us with that one. I didn't even go to that one because I was at the other one the whole time. But yeah, for us, the farthest it goes is to a 3rd alarm, and after that, we call for mutual aid. Bigger departments like, New York, I'm sure they have 4th, 5th alarms.
Wow.
Right? But every department responds differently to fires and or box alarms.
Sure. And then you guys also sometimes do like, besides fires, a car goes off of the side of the highway,
yep.
That kind of thing, right? Do you guys all cross-train in the same stuff? Or like, are there guys who are like specialists?
Good question. So, there's a certain level of training we all have to be on the job that you get in the academy.
Okay.
Right? Everyone has to be hazmat ops and awareness.
Yeah.
You're fire 1, you're fire 2. In Hartford, we're EMRs. That means we're first responders. We're not EMTs.
Okay.
So everyone has to have that. Outside of those main things, I think my class was the first class where Rescue Corps was a mandatory thing. It's just like, oh man, how do I explain it? It's like rope rescue stuff.
Okay.
But like the basic principles, not like a rope rescue tech.
I see.
So if you're on the truck, like me, we have to be hazmat tech certified.
Okay.
So the difference between ops and awareness and tech, ops and awareness pretty much set up decon, and they don't go into the quote unquote hot zone.
Okay.
As hazmat techs, we are able and certified to put on like a level A hazmat suit, go in there, deal with whatever, and come out. So that's one distinction between engine and truck, that you have to have that. Now we have a tactical unit. That's where a lot of the certifications come in. So they're a tactical unit. They deal with confined space, water rescue, all that. So if you want to be on that unit, you have to have a lot more certifications.
Okay.
To qualify to be at that unit, and then they gotta want you too. When I first started, I thought that's where I wanted to be. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it now, but I really love my truck company, my crew.
Sure.
Where I'm at. I don't really plan on going anywhere anytime soon.
Cool.
But as far as certifications, if you're on the TAC company, there's a number of certifications you have to get before you're even eligible to put in, transfer, or ask if there's anyone in the different groups that would want you.
Some of the certifications, has there ever been a class that you've taken and you're like, this is fun, or is it like, or are they more like
so
going through the paces?
No, some of them are fun for sure.
Yeah.
Like we had to do a fireground survival class that was really fun. That was really fun actually. I took an elevator tech class, which was cool because you really got to know. So on the truck company, you respond to a lot of elevator rescues. I put that in quote because, listen, sometimes you get people that call that they're stuck and they realize that they're high and they never hit a button. Exactly. So you get there and the elevator's working and they're like, yeah, the party got out, no worries, and you're just like, all right, whatever. But sometimes you do have a legit elevator rescue. So that class was cool because it broke down different types of elevators, different types of doors, going to the elevator room, what to look for, how to shut off power properly, what to do in different scenarios, different ways to pick open an elevator depending on what kind of lock it is. It was a lot. It was cool. But then sometimes you notice, like, man, this shit is dope, but we don't got these tools. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And if we do get them, most of the time it'll be the TAC.
Okay.
But that class was pretty cool. The fireground survival was pretty cool. Hazmat tech was one of those where you're just like, man, I just got to get through this. There was a lot of chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
I don't mind chemistry. I just think it was a little much for what we have to do.
Sure.
But, it is important to know these things.
Yeah.
The trouble with some of these classes is you take them and you never know when you're going to use them. Meaning it could be years. Years before you haven't used anything, and now you get this one call, and it's that one class you took 5 years ago. So if you don't keep up to date with different training and whatnot,
you didn't feel good the day they taught the skill
like
anyway.
If you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing with like tying ropes and knots. Like they used to tell us in the academy, like, hey man, once you get out of here, make sure you keep practicing these, because if you don't, you're gonna forget.
Yeah.
And like most of us, I'm not gonna forget. I think the other day someone asked me to make a certain type of knot. I was like, yeah, I got it. Fuck. I got it, but it took me a second to remember, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, you really think you're gonna remember something? Like, no, you're not.
Right.
You got to keep training. It's just like martial arts and everything else. You got to keep training your skill set.
Wow. You ever use the Jaws of Life?
Yeah.
How's that? What is that the real name for it, or does it have like some technical name?
We call them spreaders.
Spreaders.
That's literally what they do. They spread.
All right.
Yeah, I've used it a couple times. There's different sizes for them.
Okay.
I think the tactical unit has the larger ones.
Okay.
We used to have ours where we had to plug into a generator and use it that way, but now we all got brand new ones that are hydraulically powered with batteries. They're heavier, but they're way faster, and you don't have a cord behind you, so you can.
So it's portable.
You can do simultaneous.
Yeah.
Cutting and spreading on a car if you need to. We actually had to do that the other day at work, but yeah, those are legit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people. Everyone always asks me, "Do you ever use a Jaws of Life?"
Because the name.
I know. It's like one of the most known tools that we have.
Yeah.
But you don't. I can't say you don't use it as much. It just really depends what city you're in, what department you're in, and what kind of calls you get, right? Like, there's different pockets of the city that get more accidents than others, right? Like, Engine 11, Ladder 5, exit 46 is Sisson Avenue. Literally, you get off, you look to your right, there's the firehouse.
Yeah.
So they respond to, plenty of car wrecks in the highway and whatnot.
Sure.
But then again, like, I work in the North End, so it's like, the good old North End Pass is, I wouldn't advise it, but you get a lot of car wrecks up in the North End as well. So it just depends what part of the city you're working at.
Sure. What about when you hear about, like, the brush fires, like, out in California?
That's a whole different type of firefighting.
Mm-hmm.
That's called wildland firefighting. So we are, we deal with structures. We deal with residentials, houses. That is very, very different than what we do. For example, we have all this gear that we carry. They're not carrying that. Because you got to think about it. You're in the woods. If you have all that gear on you, you're not going to last much more than 10, 15 minutes. Right? Because they do a lot of digging, trenches and all that stuff to try and redirect the fire or stop the fire from going. So they're like miles out doing all this work. They're fucking cowboys, man. Like, that shit is not easy. And I don't think they get paid nearly enough to do that shit. And that's also, like, I can't go over there and do that. There would have to be different certifications and things that I have to go through to get that.
Sure.
But that's, to me, that's, you are the definition of a sled dog when you're doing that.
Oh, wow.
Actually, David Goggins, he is a wildland firefighter. And he's talked about it before a couple of times. And if you know anything about David Goggins, he's just a workhorse, which is the reason why he wanted to be a wildland firefighter. Because it's one of those things where it just, to those that know, it doesn't go unnoticed. Those that don't, it's like, man, those dudes are in it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is the first one scary?
Fire?
Yeah.
My first one, it wasn't so much scary as it was just making sure I was doing what I was supposed to do.
Sure.
I'm lucky. I've had a couple oh shit moments.
Yeah.
But I'm still so new and young in the career where I haven't had like okay, my belly's on the ground and because the heat is so bad that I can't move. Like, there's been, situations where every person in their career has moments like that multiple times in their career where it's like, oh shit. Now, I have had moments where I'm doing a search and I'll get caught somewhere and I'm like, wait a minute. Where the fuck am I, right?
I was just going to ask you that. I was like, you ever get lost in there? I mean, that's got to be nuts.
I don't care what any firefighter says. I don't. You will get turned around in your career numerous times.
Yeah.
I'm still new. It's happened to me a couple of times. I can only imagine some of these guys with 20 years in the job.
Sure.
And they'll tell you, like, there's been times where I'm like, I should probably call a Mayday, but let me try and figure something out first, and then they'll find their way. One of my last fires I was at, I'll never forget. It's like maybe a month ago. I'm doing my search. Mind you, fires in a building when it's happening isn't like you see in movies. All this bright shit where you can see clear as day. No. That shit is black. It's all smoke. It's fucking banked to the ground. You can barely see shit, if anything. If you get low enough, you always have a little space where you can kind of see, but you're not going to be searching on your stomach, right?
Right.
So you kind of got to learn to paint a picture of the room with where you're going.
Yeah.
And like, all right, there's a door, here's a window. I know if shit goes wrong, I can come back, pop this, and get the fuck out, right?
Right.
But I was doing my search, and I believe it was a closet. But I wasn't sure if it was another room, so I didn't want to fully commit to it.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let me just kind of wave my tool in here and see if I got anything. Somehow I ended up in there. And the problem was, it was a closet, but it had two doors that opened, one to one room, one to another.
Oh.
So I remember I'm in there, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Because I felt like I was trying to feel for the wall of the closet in the back.
Yeah.
So I would know that, like, all right, my search is done in this room, or in this closet, I can kind of come out and keep searching the room. That door was open. So I was like, confused because I was like, do I go in there or not? I didn't, obviously, because my crew and my captain, we were all in this room, so I'm not just going to abandon ship. It's called freelancing. It's a good way to die. But it took me a second, and then I remember fire's out or under control, so, it's vented. Now you can see. And going back to the building, I was like, this is... Honestly, it was about this big in depth, maybe a little wider, and that's where I got caught up. And you go back and you laugh. I'm like, really? Like, that's what caught me up.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like anything, repetition. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get.
Yeah.
My first fire that I was in charge of my crew, I had a lot of respect for officers after that fire. Because when you're in the back seat, you know your job. And sometimes you get tunnel vision. You're like, all right, this is what I got to do. This is what I'm going to do. When you're an officer or in charge, you can't have tunnel vision. You know what your job is, but now you have to worry about everyone in your crew, right?
Right.
You have to look at conditions. Like, is this fire, like, are we making progress or is it getting worse and do we need to get out?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Luckily, I was lucky enough where when we showed up to the fire door, because leading up to it, one of my guys was like, hey, I'm going to go around to the Charlie side to see if we have fire showing like they said over the radio. It's like, all right, go ahead, meet us at the bottom of the stair landing. He meets us there. He's like, yeah, man, we got a fire. I was like, all right, cool. We get up there, we pop the door, we mask up, we go in. Luckily, there was an experienced lieutenant there that came in at the same time with the TAC. So it was me and my crew on Ladder 4 and him and his crew. We go in there, we start doing a search. Again, I don't feel the heat at this point or nothing because I'm just so focused on the one task I have to do.
Right.
And there was a point where he just grabbed us and he was like, guys, we don't have any water yet. It's getting fucking bad in here. We have to step out.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where it was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We stepped out. It's almost as soon as we stepped out, they got water flowing and then we went back in. But like little things like that, you just have to trust your guys to work. You're still working, but you're looking at your surroundings.
Sure.
Right? What's the smoke doing? Is that fire starting to roll over? Right? Like, do I have to worry about flashover? What's the heat like?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that's when I realized I'm gonna wait a while before I test for lieutenant.
Right on.
Like at 5 years you can test. I don't think that's enough time to, unless you've had like 100-something fires in 5 years, which is rare.
Yeah.
I don't think that's enough time in the back to really, take other people's lives and your responsibility.
I get that. I get that.
There's different thoughts on that. Some people are like, all right, well, would you think about the people in your class? Do you want some of them to be in charge of you? Because they're going to be. And it's like, no. But, you just got to do what works for you.
Yeah.
If you're hesitating on it or you're not sure, just wait. Don't do it.
Right.
If you're doing it just for the money, that's a bad idea too because, sweet, you get a paycheck that's bigger, but you know what you're doing?
Right.
Like, are you ready to go to someone's house and be like, hey, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, then you shouldn't be in that position.
No.
That's just my opinion.
I agree. That's serious. That's serious. You ever, I don't know, you're doing something like sleeping, or maybe you just decided to, because when you have downtime, you have downtime.
Correct.
Right? And you just literally started to like maybe cook dinner and man, you're like, man, damn.
All the time.
All the time? Yeah.
Some houses are more notorious for it, like Engine 1 Ladder 6. They're probably the busiest house in the city. And I've worked overtime there a couple times, and it's like, trying to get a meal going is, not every day is like that, but sometimes you just got to put it on hold, take shit off the burners, turn everything off, come back, restart everything. It's just, you get used to it,
Yeah.
You start to prepare for it, like, all right, I know the weekends, Friday, Saturday, sometimes Sunday, can get hectic.
Yeah.
I also know first of the month, always crazy.
Okay.
People get their freaking checks and their money, and you can have a lot of calls. Once it starts getting nice out like this, people are out doing stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get more calls. Full moons.
Yeah.
Crazy nights usually. 4th of July.
I was just gonna ask.
Yep, 4th of July gets nuts. And you know Hartford. All summer is fireworks. Not just the 4th of July is just like expanded upon. But almost every year that I've been on there, we've had a fire either Christmas or Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving. Same thing with Christmas and Christmas Eve.
Wow.
So there's just certain times of the year that you just know, or days of the week, like, nah, we're probably going to be pretty busy today.
Damn.
Anytime there's like a big storm, especially some of these windstorms we had, like on the truck we respond to fires mainly, but also service calls like power lines down, issues with smoke detectors, what else? Elevator rescue, stuff like that. So, you know, when there's a windstorm, it's just like, fuck, we're going to be up all night going to power lines down. But if it's a bad windstorm, like the one we had a couple of weeks ago, it was like, I was in charge that day too. My lieutenant wasn't in. And I remember getting to the scene and I was like, I looked at my driver, he's got 20 years. So when my lieutenant isn't there and either I'm in charge or my friend who's in the back is in charge, he's got more experience than me, my backseat partner. I think he's got 7 or 8 years. But our driver has 20 years.
Wow.
And I always usually fuck with him. I was like, listen, when I'm in charge, you're in charge. I have a good idea, but I'm going to look at you before every decision I make. And he's like, all right, cool. So we rolled up and I just, Mac, who do I bring in for this? Because there was a giant tree that fell on top of the power lines that brought him down. So now you have live wires, but you don't know where. So we had a couple of those that day. But again, it's just knowing, the more you do it, the more you get an idea of, oh man, today could be a busy day. But then sometimes you have days where you're just like, you thought it was going to be busy?
Right.
You got like 1 or 2 calls.
Wow.
Again, it's all about where you work in the city too.
Have you and Dan ever?
Fritchick?
Yeah.
So he's in East Hartford. Unless there's mutual aid for them to come here or us to go there, I won't see him.
Gotcha.
I have gone to East Hartford for mutual aid, but it wasn't to help them at a fire. It was to staff one of their firehouses while they had other people at a fire.
Oh, okay.
So that's common too. Now, I think that's the only time I went to mutual aid. But Ben Coker works. So I work off Albany Ave.
Okay.
25 Blue Hills. There's a McDonald's on Albany Ave closer to the West Hartford side.
Okay.
I am right across the street from there.
All right.
Now, if you keep going down Albany Ave, Coker works at the fire station in Bishop's Corner,
Yeah,
which
okay.
also happens to be Station 4. He's a lieutenant over there. I think he works, so I think they do groups 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
We do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
I'm on B tour, which would be the equivalent to group 2 over there.
Okay.
I want to say he's group 4, so we're like completely opposite. So the chances of me ever really working with him, unless he's on overtime and I'm working for someone on A tour,
Gotcha.
slim to none. I'm not sure what group Dan works on, but I know he was at that fire when we had that third alarm.
Yeah.
I know he responded to the other one that came in.
I got you.
Because I saw him at the gym the next day and we were talking about it. Because I asked him, I'm like, yo, how was it? Apparently that was a really good fire too. But, yeah.
You know, and I mean this as a compliment, right? All due respect in the world. You got to be a different dude to run into a fire. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, now, you, Dan, Ben, like, I had a fire one time and I ran into it. But I'm not a fireman. I'm just dumb. Right? You know what I mean? Like, I'm doing it the one time because it's like, oh, my shit's gonna...
Yeah.
But you're like, here we go. Let's do... You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's definitely exhilarating. I don't know why. But it is. But you also got to understand, like, we have gear. You know, we have our Scott packs. We have our gear that's rated for this and that. That is not a thing where it's like, I'm not going to be harmed because I have this. Because if it gets too fucking high and you get trapped, you're fucked.
Right.
I mean, I guess in a way to explain it to you, it's like fighting, right? Like, people probably look at you and what you do and how you train and when you used to compete. Like, you're crazy. You're going in there knowing someone can knock you the fuck out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The feeling's really no different,
Okay.
right? Like, you have to have a healthy level of fear. Because if you don't, then you're going to think you're invincible, and that's how you die.
Yep.
Same thing with fighting. You think you're invincible to some extent, and it's like, listen, there's always a badder dude out there.
Sure.
So, I kind of treat it the same. I don't think about those things until after the fire.
Right.
Like, when I'm in it, I'm not, like, and going to it, I'm not, like, thinking about, oh, fuck, I'm going into a burning building.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to go to work.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get crap because people are like, man, you guys don't do anything. You just chill at the firehouse and hang out and eat and this and that. I'm like, yeah, all right, well, it's 2 a.m. You're dead asleep. The lights go off. You have a fire. You have 5 minutes to get downstairs, all your gear on, and at the fire giving a size up. Yeah. Now you're there. You got smoke and fire blowing out of all these windows. You have to give a proper size up and come up with your plan of attack because you're in charge until the district gets there. So now you have to tell everyone where to go and what to do, and you were sleeping.
Yeah.
5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right? It's like...
Yeah.
Everyone likes to talk shit till it comes down to do shit, and then it's like, well, this is the reality of our job.
Yeah.
Again, not every night is like that, but you just never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Which keeps it interesting.
Yeah. A good friend of mine was a firefighter in the Air Force, and he loved it.
Oh, they do some crazy shit.
Really?
Well, I wouldn't say crazy, but they got to deal with different types of fire, like with the fuel in the aircraft and stuff, like where they have to go through so much more training for all that. Like, if I wanted to be a firefighter in the Air Force, first of all, I'd have to join the Air Force. But just because I'm a firefighter in a city doesn't mean I don't have to get extra training to be a firefighter in the Air Force.
Sure. Do they have, like, I would imagine they have to have access to helicopters and shit like that. Do you guys? Like, for certain things?
It depends where you work, right? Like, we're Hartford. We're a city, and we have a fire hydrant, like, every, I shit you not, probably every 50 feet.
Okay.
So we're super lucky. We have a really good water supply. Everywhere we go, we're going to have a hydrant. Now, you get into some of these places in, like, Maine or New Hampshire. I mean, some places in Connecticut, too, where it's just like a country town and you don't have much.
Shit.
Now, that's where, you have your tankers, you have hard suction lines and stuff like that, so you might not have a hydrant. You might have to use a fucking pond down the road. Yeah. And there's different equipment for that. Like, we don't have that in Hartford. Because we have a hydrant everywhere.
Okay.
So, it just depends on where you work. We don't have helicopters. I don't know many departments that do. But some of these places, like where you see those wildland fires, it's,
they must have to.
It's different. They have to have different things.
Right.
So it's kind of all just on location and demographics of what you got going on.
Wow. How many guys? So there's there's 5 on yours?
In my crew?
In your crew?
So Hartford does 4-person crews.
4-person.
If you're on the engine, it's 4 people. If you're on the truck, it's 4 people. Sometimes you ride heavy. We haven't done that in a long time, not even since I've been there. Just because of staffing. So riding heavy for us would be 5 guys. Okay. And it's normally the truck that would ride heavy as opposed to the engine.
I see.
So if you have a 2-piece house and a single piece. A single piece is just an engine company. A 2-piece house is an engine and a truck company. Okay. I live in a 2-piece house because I'm on the truck. So there's 8 of us at the firehouse at one time. Okay. Other places run 3-person crews. It just depends on the department. Like, New Britain used to be 4. They switched to 3. I don't know how long ago they switched to 3, but I think West Hartford runs 3. Okay. So it just depends on the department.
Got it. You ever see... you hear stories about people, like, they go and grab and, like, skin peels off. Have you seen that shit?
I haven't yet. I've seen some other wild shit that I won't talk about.
Okay, all right. Yeah. No problem.
But, you have... That's the thing about that's the beauty about firefighting, right? There's a lot of culture in it.
Yeah.
Sometimes for better or for worse. Sometimes it's like people are stuck in these old ways.
Yeah.
And they think because they were brought up a certain way that everyone should be brought up the same way. And it's like, man, times are changing. Fires are changing. Things are evolving. Like, it's not all the same.
Yeah.
But, you know, as a younger guy on the job, and in general, you know, don't... My best advice to some of these newer guys, myself included, because I still consider myself new, like, just listen to people, right? People are going to tell war stories at dinner, and that's almost the highlight of the day, because it's like, that's where you learn.
Okay.
You know, they tell some stories about some stuff they had to do or seen or crazy fires, and you learn a lot from that.
Sure.
Whether it's what to do and what not to do, whatever it may be. And I've had some guys, you know, give stories where it's like, yeah, you know, it was so hot in there, I went to grab this person and pull him out, and just like you said, it came off. But those, we call them war stories because that's what they are.
Sure.
But those times, you know, when you get to sit down and pick like an old timer's brain like that, it's fucking awesome. They'll tell you some shit, you're just like, what?
Wow.
But they'll teach you a lot too, you know, if, just like any job, you have people that are open and aren't, or people that, you know, can be assholes or not.
Sure.
But most of the time, majority of firemen that have time on the job know that it's their duty to help teach the younger guys.
Yeah.
Whether it's through their experience or whether it's through training or whether it's just at a call.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you how many times my lieutenant will be at a call. The call's done, whatever it was we responded to, and I'm like, hey guys, come here. You see this building? How would you approach it? If a fire came in over here, you got this, and that, right? Like, those are things you don't forget.
Yeah.
Or even after a fire, you go back to the firehouse, clean your gear, you wash up, you kind of just sit around the table and talk. Like, what happened? What went wrong? What could we have done better? Stuff like that. And that's where you really start to learn. But yeah, I haven't had that happen to me. I'm sure it'll happen to me before my career's over.
Sure.
If it doesn't, good.
Right, right.
But like I said, in the short 3.5 years, I've seen some stuff. But, you know, it's like anything in life. You learn. I'm really good at separating my work from home.
Good. Good.
Some people aren't. I would like to say, do not be afraid to reach out. I think, and this goes with military and everything, cops, I think there's such a culture of, like, being a macho man and you gotta hold your shit together. And, you know, for the longest time, don't get me wrong, we talk about stuff too. So, like, you know, you have your brothers at the firehouse, but sometimes you need more than that.
Right.
And we have services in play for that. Like, I always tell people, don't be afraid to use them.
Right.
That's what they're there for. You know what I mean? Like, you see stuff that most people are never going to see. You need to talk to someone. Talk to it. It's all confidential. No one's going to say anything. Like, you're not less of a person. If anything, I respect you more because you took the time to realize, okay, something's affecting me. I need to fix it. Right. And that is slowly changing in the fire department where it's not looked or frowned upon anymore. It's like, hey, man. Like, I've had calls where whoever was in charge, whether it was a district chief or a captain, come in, talk to the crew, like, hey, guys, do any of you guys need to talk to AP? Do you want to go home? This and that. You know, you're honest, yes, no, whatever it is, you give your answer. So it's a lot better in that regards now about promoting, you know, your own mental health and whatnot. Awesome. Which I think is, in general, becoming a bigger thing, which is good. Yeah. Because I think for the longest time it was just frowned upon. Like, well, what do you mean? You got a problem. Like, no, motherfucker. Right. I need some help. You know what I mean? And that's okay, too. So I'm glad to see that, you know, the shift is now turning towards seeking that help. It's always been there, but now it's more like it's not frowned upon. Sure. I guess you could say.
Yeah. People have got to feel like they've got a green light. Mm-hmm. You know, there's nothing wrong with needing help. No. There's everything wrong with needing help and being like, Nah. Fuck that.
No.
That's when it's a problem.
Yeah,
That's when
that leads to drug abuse, alcoholism,
Yeah.
trouble at home with this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to get taken out on something else. So you're better off just taking it on a therapist or whatever it may be.
Sure.
Whatever your coping mechanism is, as long as it's safe, right, and it allows you to express yourself.
Yeah.
Without danger.
Right.
Right, so.
Because with that job, it's not like there's an average day. Well, it's just an average day.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like
No,
there might be average things that happen. Like,
correct.
you know, like the heater comes on at this time every day.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that alarm, like the normal, like whatever TV show comes on every day that everyone watches together. But as far as an average day, it's never. Right?
No,
never.
You never know what to expect going in.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can have multiple shifts back to back where it was pretty slow, but you can have a slow day and all of a sudden you get that one call. You know what I mean? You just never know.
Right. And now, when you're on, you live there, basically?
Yeah, so we do 24-hour shifts.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah,
that's
so
it.
we do.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really not that. I mean, I don't think it's that
bad.
You do a 24 hours on, 72 off. So 1 day on, 3 off.
Uh-huh.
That's how we rotate our shifts. Now, if we work overtime, it's 48 on, 48 off.
Okay.
Because we do, again, 24-hour shifts. There is short-term overtime.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a bunch of people that signed up through a class, whether it was the department offered it or whatever. So if they're working on the day of a class, they're going to go to their class, and once it's over, they come back. So that's where the short-term overtime comes in. Make sense?
Yep.
And that's on a rotation. So you don't get overtime every shift. It's, let's say, I work on ladder 4. Let's say it started on engine 1. It's got to go through all these houses before it gets to me. Let's say that shift it got to engine 8, which is ironically what happened last shift. It starts on engine 8 this coming shift.
I see.
So I have a better chance of getting it Friday because I work Thursday. But if, I'm not going to because I have a tattoo appointment. But there's a good chance that it'll come through the house.
Yeah.
Other departments, not every department's like that. Some departments still do your traditional. Well, they do 3 straight day shifts. So I don't know what the hours are. I can't remember, but it would be 8 to whatever time at night, and then they go home. They do it for 3 days. They get 3 days off, and then they do night shifts, 3 days off, stuff like that. Hartford used to do that, but they switched to the 24-hour shift. So yeah, I mean, you end up bringing, like, you have your own bedding. You have your lockers there, right? So you have like a locker for your actual gear, like your fire gear. That's usually downstairs in the bay. You have your own personal locker, so you can put whatever in there. That's usually where, your bedding and all that goes. Like I have a little plastic shelving that I use to put like all my work clothes in there, so I don't have to take that to and from home. You have a food locker.
Okay.
In case you want to keep any snacks, right? And then you have everything else in a normal house. TVs, dining room, fridges. At first it's weird because you're, like, when I first came on, it was weird in the sense of you're just always on alert. You're like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially you're the new guy, so there's a lot more shit you got to do.
Sure.
But then the more comfortable you get and the more you know your job,
the
more you show to your officers and your peers that you know what you're doing, the more leniency they'll give you.
Okay.
But don't get it twisted. You earn that.
Yeah.
There are people that just come on the job and kind of right off rip start doing what they want, and it's like, you haven't earned that. Sometimes they get spoken to, sometimes they don't. It all depends on the officer and where they're at.
Right.
But even though they give you that leniency to kind of do your own thing, you still have things you have to do every day. Right? Like, we all have house chores. We all make sure you go over the first thing you get there, you make sure you go over your piece, everything's on there, everything works. If you're on the truck company, start your saws, this and that. If you're on the engine, make sure, all your pipes are all the way to the right so that when you open it up, you don't have a fog stream, you have a straight stream because that'll really fuck you up in a fire. So little things, depending on the piece you are, they got to go over, do your house chores, and then, you know, whatever training you have for the day with company officers. But, I mean, it's just like anything. Once you get into your routine, figure out what works for you, and you're good to go.
That's cool. I heard that, like, there's a kind of a, I don't know, maybe it's part of your training or it's a test that you guys take or something where you basically have to crawl with all this gear and it's like you can't see, or is that how, what is that?
That's just part of training.
It's part of training?
Yeah. You know, different scenarios.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the academy, you have to get used to the SCBA. You have to get used to doing everything with zero visibility. Right, because most of the time you're working in a building, you don't have visibility.
Yes.
So you have to make sure you can figure out what's going on with your Scott pack, untangle things, and do all that stuff with zero visibility. Likewise, you want to make sure you have your gloves on.
Okay.
That's one thing my first captain, who's now a chief, really dug into us in the academy and when I came on the line and he was my captain, was don't be that guy where you have to take off your gloves to put on your helmet and scout up and do all this stuff, because you're not always going to put your mask on outside the building. I mean, more often than not, you're not, because now you're just wasting air, right? Like,
sure.
You get to the fire room, or the smoke is so bad, now you mask up. You really want to make sure you do everything with your gloves, because it's too hot to not have your gloves on.
Right.
In the building, right? So, practicing everything with your gloves on, practicing doing things in the dark. That survival class we took, it was like they just blindfold you, they put you up in the top of this building or in a room, and then just different scenarios, like, all right, if you find a hose line, you can find your way out of a building, because somewhere that hose line is connected to a truck that is outside of the building.
Right?
So we used to have this thing called smooth bump to the pump. It's the couplings. So smooth, you feel a bump and a bump.
Okay.
That's going to take you out to the building, or excuse me, out to the truck, as opposed to the fire.
Gotcha.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So they'll put you somewhere and you find the hose line, and then you got to kind of just feel for it, and that hose line will guide you out. But it's all done, you know, obviously with no visibility. And those drills are all good because it helps you get used to doing things without visibility.
Yeah.
But nothing, I mean, there's no fire. You don't got like 8 people around you. You don't, people screaming. You don't have, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's very, like, stress-free.
Okay.
As opposed to being in a building, let's say you're trying to pop a door and you got like 8 motherfuckers behind you. Like, come on, get everything the fuck up. Who's taking so long? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
It's very different.
Okay.
But yeah, we do, in the academy we did a lot of it. Even at the firehouse, sometimes my lieutenant, you know, he'll set up a scenario and we'll wait till nighttime so we can turn lights off and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
You just got to stay on top of your training.
Cool. That's awesome. Listen, I appreciate this, man.
Yeah, man.
This was I had fun.
Me too.
And I learned some stuff. I've monopolized over an hour and a half of your time, so I appreciate you coming out so
absolutely.
much. And at some point, I'm gonna have you come back.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
All right. Yeah, because you know, definitely want to hear some maybe bits and pieces of specific adventures if you don't mind sharing it.
No, that's fine.
If somebody wanted to reach out and find you, is there a way they can do that? For whatever reason.
Without me giving my number out.
Right.
Yeah. My Instagram, Oldman Pagan. You can just shoot me a message there if you want.
Cool.
If I find out that you're not trying to kill me or crazy, then I'll give you my number. We can reach out that way. But no, Oldman Pagan on Instagram, and my Facebook is just Nathan Pagan.
Awesome.
So nothing crazy, yeah.
Thank you very much, brother.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.